Hey there. If we haven't met, my name's Michelle Wolf, and you can find all the information you'd ever want to know and probably more at my website at thatmichellewolf.com. Michelle and WOLFF. That second F can be a tricky one. I wanted to leave some information out there. Um, there's a lot out there about the emotional solar plexus when you're working with the system of human design. Lots of good information out there. And I think it's important that we review this center from a number of resources because it is so complex and multi-layered and really critical to those of you who are emotionally defined. So this is not really an intro video to human design. If you need the basics, there's, a million rabbit holes out there you can dive into, or you can come and get a hold of me and we'll go over your chart. This video is specifically about if you have a chart that says you are an emotional manifesting generator or an emotional projector, or it says in the authority section, emotional, which is directly the emotional solar plexus in your chart. And I'm going to show that to you right now, or not right now. Give me a minute. The thing that is important to remember when you're getting into human design, we're talking about ideals, right? We're describing centers. We're talking about gates and channels and all the aspects of you, your uniqueness. Ideally, it is important to remember, though, that we are raised in, our larger culture, our social culture, our family culture, and then our own internal culture. We form identities around personality characteristics based on our communities. When we start to get into human design, we start exploring or deconditioning ourselves to what we were raised with. There's a thing out there about it taking 7 years, and that may or may not be true. It does take a lot longer than we'd like it to unwind these things. But when you jump in and start really using the information related to your type, strategy, and authority, and you keep your focus tightly on those three aspects, even though it might take a long time to completely unwind everything that you've been taught, you're going to see results often within the first few days. You're going to feel better. You'll start practicing making better decisions. And the authority is the decision-making component of those three things: type, strategy, and your authority, which is in the body. Except for there's a couple of exceptions to that, but we're going to promise I'm going to stay focused on the emotional solar plexus. This is one of the areas that's, I'm going to say, difficult, but I really don't mean like it's so hard. It just takes a little extra investment in time to understand that if your authority is emotion based and you grew up in a culture that said emotions are bad, you can see where some conflict might be created there. You're supposed to be paying attention to your emotions, but when you were young, chances are you were called too much. You might have actually been punished or abused for being so loud or emotional or up and down all over the page. We have a lot of negative descriptors and adjectives about people who are emotional. Oh, you're so dramatic, or why can't you maintain relationships, or why do you have to make everything such a big deal, mountain out of a molehill, blah blah blah. Why can't you just settle down? um like, if you really think about it and make a list, it's kind of tragic how we view emotions. Here's the thing about emotional energy, and if you can really start to work on this one concept, it's going to make you stepping into living and really utilizing the enormous power of your emotional solar plexus a lot easier. We have to strip away the concept that emotions are good or bad, that some emotions are acceptable and some are just terrible, and we should never ever feel them. And if we feel them, we are terrible and we should lie about that. And it's kind of a complicated basket of stuff. But here's the thing, emotional energy is just energy. It's energy. It is a wave, and we'll talk about the emotional wave. But think about it this way. If you've ever been in a natural body of water, a river, even a lake, the ocean, emotions are water. A lot of our metaphors are around water and emotions. And water is one of the most powerful elements on our planet, right? Water does a lot, and we have a lot of it. And in the ocean, a boat on the ocean rises and falls, right? But you're not the boat, you're the ocean. You are the energy that is creating the rising and the falling. Your emotional solar plexus generates that energy. You are up, you are down. Maybe you're up big and then down low, or maybe you're kind of a little bit up and a little bit down. Maybe your cycle is really fast, or maybe it's over the course of a few days, even a few months. It's important to understand that there is nothing wrong with your emotions. Nothing. You have a center that produces the energy of emotion. And when we think about how we manifest things, how we magnetize ourselves to what we want, how we interact with other people, you can see why it's really important to get clear on what you're generating as a source of enormous power and beauty, not something to be ashamed of, not something to squash. Now, there can be skills in how you channel your emotions, but to squash them is painful, destructive. In my opinion, I'm not a doctor, but in my opinion, this is what drives a lot of the mystery illnesses that we have, especially in women, that doctors can't seem to find an explanation for. When you judge the most powerful part of you as being wrong, think about what that does to your system. It creates this weird shadow existence of you have all this energy and it has nowhere to go. Okay, so if you think about a river or the ocean or a lake even, but let's stick with the river metaphor. If you're standing in a river or if you've gone swimming in one, or even just observing a river, it is full of variety. It's not one monotonous rushing stream. It's fast in some spots. The riverbed goes down into deep holes, and the water in those areas is really still. And often you'll find fish hanging out in those holes because it's still and it's quiet. And then you get up to the surface and the temperature changes. Those down deep, depending on the size of the river, those down deep holes is a lot cooler than being up on the surface, which is much warmer because the sun is penetrating. So over near the banks, it's a different frequency. It's a different stream. Down deep, it's a different stream. On the surface, in the middle, in this section, it's different, but go downstream even 300-400 yards, it's different. But it's all a river. It's all water. It changes shape. It changes temperature. You can think about it in terms of water being water you can drink, water that's tea or coffee, water that is ice, water that is snow, rain. It's all water, okay? The river is all river, but it has an enormous variety within it. If we say that the deep parts of the river are good and the surface parts of the river are bad and the middle part of the river is the worst, and please don't ever experience the middle part of the river. Do you see how that judginess and that restriction ruins a river? When you put a dam across a river, you kill the river. I mean, it transforms into something else, but it's not the river it was. And we put mental story dams across our rivers all the time. Don't feel that. Okay, I won't feel that. Let me put a wall up against the energy that's coming out of me so that all my whole life then I'm saying I don't have an emotionally defined solar plexus, but my history as a therapist and an addictions counselor and all that gives me a very deep understanding of this. And energy is energy, right? And shadow work is important sometimes for emotionally defined people to get past this idea that part of them is inherently wrong or sinful or needs to be excised. No. But when we get into human design, those stories that this emotion is bad and don't feel that and do feel that, and in fact, try to feel that all the time, even though you can't, that's the dam that our energetic emotions, our emotional energy is running up against. It's just smashing into this wall all the time. Energy has to go somewhere. If it can't go downstream, if it can't come through you, because there's stories that are dams against it. There's prohibitions. Your internal policies and procedures manual says, hey, remember when you were 3, you learned that you cannot be angry, as that will get you in trouble. So never ever do that, right? Where's that anger going? It's going to go somewhere. So if it hits that restriction, it's coming back on you and coming back on you and coming back on you. And if you have a real strong drive in your emotional solar plexus, you have to find a way to survive that so you can develop disease. You can be an exploder, an intermittent exploder, where it builds up, it builds up, it builds up, and then it goes over the top of the dam. It's got to go somewhere. Best if it can be expressed appropriately. Of course, we don't want to smash all our dishes or ruin all our relationships. So there may be some skills training. So that's what's important to understand. If you're emotionally defined, you're just trying to learn about how this all works, understand we're talking about how it should be, not very likely how it is. There's going to be some unwinding. So let me give you a little bit more about that. The key phrase of the emotional solar plexus is there's no truth in the now, meaning if you're emotionally defined, trying to make decisions in the moment is not going to work for you. Okay, here's a chart. This is actually one of my granddaughters who is an emotionally defined, so her, well, they're twins and their chart is the same, which is a whole nother fascinating aspect. But this is the emotional solar plexus. And you can see that these little numbers are gates. Go look that up if you don't know what that means. You could say that these little numbers, these gates, which relate to the I Ching hexagram, are file folders of personality characteristics in your computer. On your desktop, you've got all these different files. Each one of them contains smaller and smaller bits of information. That is what these gates are. This gate 6 has a file folder of personality characteristics. 37 is the same, 22 is the same, 36 is the same. Okay? The difference is if there's a color, and different charts have it in a different color, but if you see that this number has either a circle around it or it's got a color around it, that means that gate is defined. That means that file folder is always accessible to you. You know where it's at. You can access it anytime you want. If you have people in your environment, it doesn't change that. It's a constant. You can always get to it. If it does not have a number and this section coming off of it is white, that means it's an open gate or an undefined gate. That means all the characteristics in the gate 22 for this chart, the 6 and the 49, are not always available. Sometimes you can find them, sometimes you can't. Sometimes if this is your I love pickles gate, sometimes you love pickles and sometimes you want to love pickles, but you can't quite find your enthusiasm. Maybe you go looking for the 49, but you just can't seem to quite get it. And then somebody comes over and they have a defined 49, and all of a sudden you have access to that. Another way of thinking of that is these white spaces are written in pencil. And pencil, we write stuff and then we erase it, and then we write stuff and we erase it. It's mutable. It's transitory. You don't always have access to it. This matters because it influences how your emotional wave works. You can't effectively make your best decisions if you're in the high side of your emotional wave or the low side. If you're in the high side, you're hanging out with people, you're having a great time, you love it, and you might accept offers from them in the moment or make offers to people in the moment. You might start offering jobs or, hey, let's do this project because that'd be fun because you're high, right? You're feeling good. That's good. It's good to feel good. It's not good to make decisions or commitments when you're in your high state if you have emotional authority. This is where you make your decisions. So if you're like, hey, I want you to work for me, or hey, I want to do a project with you, or hey, let's run this thing together, or they're like, hey, would you come work for me? Would you get involved in my project? And you're like, yeah, I'm loving you right now. I'll say yes to anything you offer. And then the next day or 6 months, it's falling apart. It's a struggle the whole way. You really regret making that commitment, and now you feel stuck. And then you have to break the commitment and make a ruckus, or you have to suffer through it, which makes an internal ruckus. It's just not great, right? It's not a good situation to get in. Most of the people I talk to, when they hear that, are like, this explains so much. I say yes to everything. If I'm in a good mood and am out with people and they ask me to do stuff, I say yes to it. I jump in. Or I offer stuff and end up working with people that, it's just not a good fit. It's a huge relief. And it's also the beginning of your practice of remembering there's no truth in the now. You can't make instant decisions and have them work out well, generally speaking. If you have a judgment or a story that says when someone asks you, you have to make decisions right then, salespeople use that all the time. False scarcity, got to sign up now. And you're like, oh, I love this idea. I got to sign up now. And so you sign up and you're out of money and you don't love the course. It's not a good fit. Okay. Makes sense? There's no truth in the now. You got to wait. Write this on a sticky note. Let me get back to you. Let me sleep on it. Give me a couple of days. I want to sit with this. I want to feel into it. And I'll get back to you. And if people pressure you, immediately you know it's probably not right for you in the first place, because anything that's meant for you will wait. If it truly is, you got to make that decision right then, and you feel like, oh man, I'm going to miss this opportunity. Just remind yourself that what's meant for you, you'll get another opportunity. It's extremely rare to have a true once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If that's what you're here to do in the world, you're going to get another ship. Your ship will come in again. And if you send it packing, it'll come in again. And if you're like, no, not ready yet, it'll come again. You can trust that process. Flip side of that is when you're in the low state. Everything is you don't feel good. You can't maybe not be able even to describe why you don't feel good. You just don't feel good. You're down in the dumps. You're in the low side of your cycle. And that's okay. It's supposed to be like that. Think of all the beautiful creations we have in the world that came out of melancholy or nostalgia or depression, even serious depression. And we're not talking here about clinical depression or true bipolar, not trendy bipolar disorder, but true mental health needs to be cared for. Possibly you need a medication. That has to be decisions you make. We're talking about people who are labeled dramatic or melodramatic, or what I said earlier. You make a big deal out of everything. You're so emotional. Okay, so just that little caveat that we're not talking about true clinical stuff. Although some real beautiful things come out of that. Our culture really demonizes melancholy, being kind of a moody. Sometimes artistic personalities are labeled as moody, or people in the creative performing arts, right? But those emotions are exactly what make them so good at it. We don't want them to lose their emotional bigness. their emotional power. It's what makes them who they are. So if you have a melancholy day, you don't make decisions from that place because nothing sounds good. You have a choice between, a day with friends or a day in bed or a day with someone you really love and normally like hanging out with, and you're just like, bah, everything's meh, doesn't sound good. Nothing sounds good. That's okay. You're supposed to be internal. You're supposed to be creating from a different energy, a different part of the river. You're swimming down in the bottom for that day. That's where you're supposed to be. But you don't make decisions from there because people could come by and offer you the greatest opportunity on the planet and you would pass it up because nothing sounds good. You won't have that response of, I don't feel good today, but oh, that's the right opportunity for me. Nothing sounds good. So if you make decisions in that state, you actually could miss out. Now, I know that contradicts what I just said. Know that if you miss out, you will get another opportunity. But it's better to move through life, I think, with all our pieces in cohesion, everything working together as it should. You're set up in flow, moving in the river at the right time, at the right place, with the right people, always where you should be. And if being on the couch, binge watching Netflix is not like an addictive, avoidant behavior, but it's just your down day, then it's just your down day. So someone comes and offers you something, and you say, not today. Let me sleep on it. Give me a couple of days. I'll get back to you. And the things that are meant for you will wait. It can really drive impulsive decision making when we think we're going to miss out. So, fear of missing out, FOMO, is like the worst thing for an emotional solar plexus authority person because they are afraid. That's human. We're all afraid we're going to miss out on the fun stuff and the good stuff. But it's important for you to start to honor this. You don't make decisions on the fly in the moment. You wait until you're calm. So we have the high cycle. It's a wave, right? The wave comes into shore. It's powerful. It's high, high, high. Then it starts to go back, and there's a calmness in the transition. And then it's back out, and you're in the low cycle. Okay, up, neutral, down, neutral, up, neutral, down. Neutral meaning it's good. Things are okay. You're content. Nothing's really going on. Everything's pretty good. Then you make decisions. At that point, you make decisions. If someone makes you on the an offer on the high side, and you say, "Let me think about it," then Then the next day you're in the low side, but you're still interested. You still don't decide. You wait till maybe that third day, or 24 hours or whatever, when you're like, yeah, I can do this. I want to do this. It's kind of a neutral state of, I want to do it. And if the offer's gone, I'm not going to die over it. I'm not going to get crushed over it. It's okay either way. That's another way to think about it. And then know that because this is water, it's constantly moving. You might not ever get to a hell yes or a hell no. Different people say different things. I've heard anywhere from 60 to 80%. So let's just land on 75%. If you're 75% a yes, that's a good yes for emotional solar plexus authority. If you're a 75% no, that's pretty good because it's always moving, right? It's always going to bounce around. You will always dance with ambivalence. And if your yes is a yes over time, it's still a yes. If it's a no, it's a no, it's a no, then it's a no. But when you hear people say, well, it's either a hell yes or it's a hell no, that doesn't really apply in this area. That's how we get in trouble with one size fits all marketing and decision making, things like that. It doesn't work for everyone. Every authority is a little bit different. And this one is a lot different. Okay, so the reason why the gates are important is they influence how your emotional wave might look. recognizing that the stories you have about emotions, the judgments, the criticisms, the stuffing away is going to influence what I'm about to say. So you need to feel into it and don't decide how you feel about it till you sleep on it. There's no truth in the now. Okay, so there are 3 waves. The individual wave, which is the 3955 channel. So if you have this 55 gate, which this girl does, connects to the 39. She has this whole channel. Or you have the 1222, which there's nothing here. So well, it's there, it's not active. It won't be active unless she's with someone who has that defined. So if this gate was activated, though, if it had that purple color around it or a circle around it, it would be part of this individual wave. So these are the people who have the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows. So let's say you just have the 55 and it has a color in it, but the 39 doesn't. You can modulate this just a little bit. If it's complete, it's pretty big. And let me tell you, it's pretty big. Again, this is one of my twin granddaughters' charts, and their charts are exactly the same. So it really doesn't matter which one it is, but the highs are the high and the lows are the low. It is dramatic. It's huge. It's big, and it has challenged our entire family to even more. I mean, we're a family of, my daughter was raised by a therapist and social worker. So there's lots of room for emotion, and it's okay. And these little girls are powerfully emotional, and it challenged us to go, oh, there's more work to do about taking judgments off emotions. Think about little kids just in general. When they emote, if people don't get in their way and try to make them stop, it's like a loud thunderstorm that flies through the neighborhood and then it's gone. And it might be scary and loud while it's happening, but if you just, cover your head, keep everybody safe, that emotion just rolls on through. It comes into shore, it goes right back out to shore if we don't interfere with it. So the 55 or the 22, if it's active on your emotional solar plexus, that is the high and the low, and it really complicates things if you have a lot of judgments about being too emotional, too loud, too dramatic. Okay. The key is mindful presence, really starting to look at what are my judgments about emotions? Which emotions were allowed in my family and which ones did you get punished for? Which ones were you even directly told, like shut up or banished to your room because you were being too emotional? The waves and the cycles vary. So you can be high, low over the course of 24 hours, or you can be high, low over a few days. And this is where emotional tracking is critical. You won't know what your pattern is if you don't track it. You won't remember it. Trust me. I used to teach dialectical behavioral therapy to adolescents. A key component to them understanding themselves is writing down their emotions because they would think they were always depressed, and they weren't. We aren't. Even when you're clinically depressed, you have moments of a little bit more up, maybe just a little, but it's still there. Emotions are not static. It's a river we're talking about. It's not ever the same. It's not ever completely static. So take a calendar, a planner, a little notebook every day for at least 30 days. And I recommend 60 to 90 days, tracking twice a day, 3 times if you're really ambitious. How am I feeling? You could just draw a little emoji, morning, noon, and night, or morning and night. Gather that data for 30 days minimum, and then look back over it. And you should be able to see that you have a somewhat predictable pattern. Now, life will impact you, and you'll have thoughts, which then will trigger emotions. But you should have a pattern that you can see. Oh, I'm in my high zone for a day, and then I feel pretty good for half a day, and then I'm down in the dumps for a day and a half, and that happens 5 times in a month. You see? So tracking it helps you see the patterns, which helps you then start to hear your thoughts about emotions, which helps you discover what walls, what dams have been put in your river by yourself or others that are creating this log jam of energy. They can be very predictable, except, okay, everything has a refinement, right? They can be predictable, and they can be predictably unpredictable. Okay, so you can have a set pattern that's easy to identify, or you can have a pattern of unpredictability. So you know that about yourself, that you're unpredictable and that there really isn't much of a pattern, or it's very hard to see, which is why I say track it for 60 to 90 days. If your pattern is predictably unpredictable, you may still be able to find a pattern to your unpredictability. I hope that makes sense. Being mindful, being very present with your emotions. We tend to stuff them away. We tend to create a lot of drama in relationships when this center, well, as human beings, but especially when this center is defined. So becoming very conscious and very mindful of how are you handling emotions, and if you're using addictive type behaviors to not feel or to dampen your feelings down. Those are important things to know. You can be high physically and low physically, like energetically. Super high energy, can't get off the couch. Super high emotionally, can't summon interest in anything. Could be seasonal, still normal. Could be months or years. Again, I will hammer this home, or try to hammer it home several times. The benefit of emotionally tracking your cycles, you're just how you feel. When I say cycles, I just mean, am I happy? Am I sad? Am I on a scale of 1 to 10? Am I at a 0? I can't get off the couch, or am I at a 10? I'm running around like the Tasmanian Devil cartoon. Are you super, super crazy, or cannot move? A little scale, a little happy or sad face, or a little neutral face. That's it. It's that simple. Don't overthink this. If you overthink it and make it complicated, you definitely won't be as likely to do it. Okay, the other gates, the 4130. Right here's the 30, 40, 41 at this end, 30 here, and the 36, 35. So she has the 36 gate activated. It doesn't go all the way to the other side, so it's not a channel. It's called a hanging gate. But she'll still have these characteristics. It might be slightly modulated. So that's slightly moderated. So this is called the collective wave. We just talked about the individual wave. This is the collective wave. Slow climb, sudden drops. Happy, pretty good, maybe get super hyper, and then boom, down in the dumps. And then it starts over. This is experiential and creative. These are fantasy-based ideas. This is you could almost call this like an addicted to drama, chaos creating. If there's boredom, they'll create a ruckus just to experience some emotional energy. If there's nothing going on in your relationships, you might find that you pick a fight, that you nitpick until there's an argument. And it creates a lot of chaos in relationships for sure. But the good part is this is the leading edge, right? This aspect of it is testing the boundaries of what's possible. How much chaos can I tolerate? How much creating can I do in the chaos? Chaos can be the part that breaks down paradigms and creates art that no one understands, but turns out to be, world paradigm changing, just incredible stuff. So you can see how when we judge it, it complicates the hell out of everything. And when we utilize it, when we harness that energy and say, oh my gosh, I am about to pick a fight with my partner just because I'm bored. What else can I do? I wonder what kind of art I can create. I wonder if I could write a sales page with this energy. I wonder if I could declutter the house or go do some service work while I have all this energy surging through me. It's not bad except when it's judged, but this, you really have to wait. You really can't make decisions when you're bottoming out or when you're in the super high side. Every one of these aspects, you're waiting for neutral. You're waiting for, it's okay either way. It's okay either way. Okay, and the last ones are the 37, which goes to the 40. Again, we have a hanging gate with this chart. The 59, 6 is right here, and the 1949. So this is a variable. She's not going to really feel this file folder. She's not going to be able to read it as easily unless she's around someone that has their 49 gate defined. Okay, so this is where relationship drama, lots of emotion around relationships, interactions with others. Very hard to shift out of the you hurt me kind of victim energy, taking everything to heart, taking it in and making it very personal. The wrong word, the wrong look, very easy to misinterpret other people's intentions here. They hurt me on purpose. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. You have to really dig into your thought patterns around relationships. And there can be real pain and heartbreak when something goes wrong with relationships. When I'm using the word drama, I mean, let's take the stigma off that word. It is dramatic. That's not bad. Let's take the good and bad off of chaos. Chaos is not bad. Chaos creates life. Upheaval in emotions, that's not inherently bad either. Maybe there's a reason for that upheaval. Maybe it's good challenge for that person to work on. Here's what they said. I wonder what they meant. And instead of assuming what they meant, you train yourself and practice asking, here's what I heard you say, and here's what I thought it meant, and I'm feeling this way about it. Is that what you meant? That's a practice, and we have to really start saying, do they mean to hurt me? Do they mean to neglect me? Or are they just living their life? Is this a malicious intent? Or are they just being another human being just like me? And you have to start checking things out. There can be loads of assumptions here in relationships, assuming malintent, assuming that the other is personally trying to create this heartbreak. You just happen to feel heartbreak when things go wrong in relationships. Relationships they matter to you. These are tribal waves. They're very rooted. They're connected to the root, the survival. So you can see how if you've got a channel that goes all the way to the root, it's going to be a different experience than if this gate only goes halfway. It's a hanging gate like this 37. She's going to experience this differently than if it was a full channel. She's going to experience this whole basket of stuff, since this is the 39. The 3955 is defined, and so is the other one, the 3041. Couldn't see it for a second. Intimacy, relational intimacy lives here. Jumping in creates chaos in relationships. So jumping into relationships, period. Jumping deeply into friendships too fast, jumping deeply into romantic relationships too fast, not waiting to see if you're actually a good fit, or if you're triggered and you have a template for hooking up with narcissists or addicts or rageaholics or whatever. If you were raised with, let's say, an alcoholic, then you may find yourself attracted to alcoholics, not because you're an idiot, but because that's what's familiar. And so if you don't wait, you don't get to see your relationship patterns. You just end up in another chaotic, volatile relationship, wondering how the hell you got there because it felt so right. So this is another area where we have to dig into and really get mindful and conscious and practice. This is a practice. It's not going to be an overnight thing because of how our culture deals with emotion, and especially emotion in relationships, and especially intimate emotional relationships. Okay. So it can feel right. And you're so super happy and you're so excited to meet this person and you rush right in. And what happened is they were just familiar to you. But you don't want familiar because that's been unhealthy or even toxic for you. So you have to wait. Waiting. Go ahead and feel your excitement about the other person. Go ahead and feel your high and your low. Just don't decide from that point. Give yourself time. If you're super hotly attracted to someone, that's often an indicator that they're just very familiar to whatever pattern you grew up with. And if you'll wait and go slow, you'll start to see, oh, this is that pattern I said I wanted to quit. And because I've waited, I can see now that the pattern is forming right in front of me, and I can choose to exit before it gets too sticky. Okay. So the nice thing about this, the tribal waves, the 4037, 59.6, 1949, they are tribal based. They see the whole thing, and they're great in a crisis, right? Because it's fast response. Jump right in. Jumping in is good when it's good. Jumping in is not good when it's not good, right? That's your cat poster philosophy for the day. Jumping in is good when it's good. So saying all this stuff, it's wordy, right? It's a lot of words. It's hard to think about why that or how this might be playing out in your decision making. So you can play with it. Start with the emotional tracking. When you start to see, and do it by hand if at all possible. I know some people just hate writing on paper, but there is a neurological aspect of handwriting on paper so you can feel it and see it. Makes connections differently than typing, or if you just think about it, I can promise you it's not going to work. You've got to get it down where you can look back over the month and you can see that you do have a pattern and that you do judge the shit out of yourself for that pattern, and it's creating a problem. You're ending up in projects you don't want to be in. You're making offers to other people that then you don't want to follow through on because it was wrong. You just were feeling great, or you just were with them. This can be people who are sort of out of sight, out of mind. When you're with them, they're like, they totally love you. And then when they're gone, they just kind of forget. all okay. Bottom line is this deconditioning process. We've been conditioned to react or repress certain emotions. This is highly damaging to emotional people, to human beings in general, but especially to those people who are fountains of emotion. This emotional solar plexus is like a waterfall. It's creating its own wave. It's doing it by itself. It's this energy center is a geyser. It makes and produces emotional energy. We need you. We need our emotionally big people. We need those big responses and the low responses too, that when used correctly, create really beautiful things, come up with really cool ideas, paradigm shifters, people who are like, this is how we've always done it. I'm feeling the urge to stir up some chaos and make a ruckus. Watch me go. If it's done well, if it's done safely, if it's done mindfully, if it's done with right timing, it's beautiful. And it will help you not end up in relationships you don't want to be in, not commit to things that cost you time and money and they weren't a good fit for you. Don't judge yourself as wrong for anything that you've done where you did jump in and it did turn out to be a mess. There's nothing wrong with that either. Every single thing we go through is another chapter of our story, right? It's another thing, it's another file folder in our brain that we can go back and grieve the loss or experience the shame or do whatever we need to do with processing emotions. And you might need help from a coach or a therapist for that. That's okay. That's perfectly wonderful. But when we get through the trauma of it, when we get through the wounding that we've experienced, we get to go dig around in those file folders and find the little gems that are truly valuable, that contribute to the wisdom in the world because you've been through some hard stuff. Not that I would wish that on anyone, and also some of those gems are extremely valuable and can be turned into something that you offer the world or just benefits you and those closest to you. If you think about it, if you do the work and master this system of beautiful emotions, you give that as a gift to yourself. You also give that as a gift to every single person you interact with, to the people you live with. If you do it as a parent, your kids are going to have a different experience, which means their kids are going to have a different experience and their kids. It's a ripple effect. So it's hard. It's challenging in the beginning. You have to shift a lot of things and stay committed, as this is a process. And when you commit to it, the rewards are indescribable. There's no way that I can tell you because you have to experience it yourself. Just remember and keep going back to there's no truth in this moment. So don't make the offer. Think about it. Feel into it. Hold it. Don't say yes or no to the offer. Think about it. Imagine it. Use your third eye. Visualize it. How does it feel? How will it feel 6 months from now? Start to communicate with all these other parts of your system. Like we're talking about this chakra, this energy center in isolation, but ultimately, it's part of the bigger picture. But master this, strip away your stories about emotions, learn to wait and test it out. Notice that when you wait, things go easier, things go better, and you get opportunities to okay, well, what do I do with all this emotional energy? What do I do when I feel like I'm going to explode? Go scream, go swim, go get in water, go get outside, put your feet on the ground, bare feet if possible. Run that energy through into the earth, vent it out the top of your head, push it out your pores. Just give yourself little mental pictures and little sequences of images that you can feel this pressure that you used to act out on, and ask yourself, do I really need to do something with this emotional pressure? What would happen if I just simmered here? What would happen if I just let myself be a slow boil? Would that be okay? Is it okay for me to hold anger? Is it okay for me to hold irritation or extreme joy or extreme sadness? Can all of that be okay? Yes, it absolutely can be okay. All right, I hope that helps. Just wanted to throw some more information out there. There are, like I said, there's lots of information out there on emotional solar plexuses. Would it be plexi? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Anyway, again, my website is thatmichellewolf.com. And if you need clarification or you want to send me a message or whatever, that's fine. But hopefully this helps you start to get a grasp of why this matters so much and why you're so valuable to the human race as a whole and to everyone who meets you and comes in contact with you. All right, thanks.